Get your hands off our clients and get out of here. This spa is not for your kind." The words snapped through the eucalyptus air like a whip. Every head turned. A marble basin dripped once, then silence swallowed the room. The woman in the white shirt did not move. Her posture still, controlled, felt like defiance sculpted from calm. The security guard's hand tightened on her arm, and somewhere behind the glow of candles, a guest whispered, "Oh my God, is she staff?" Before we go further, ask yourself this. Have you ever watched someone stripped of dignity in a place built to heal? Stay right here, because what happens in the next few minutes will make you question what luxury really means. At 11:46 a.m., inside the Serenité Luxe Spa in downtown Atlanta, the air smelled of lavender, wealth, and quiet judgment. White robes moved like clouds across polished marble floors. The woman being escorted out, Dr. Nia Lawson, though no one knew it yet, stood in the only patch of shadow in the room. She was 41, tall, deliberate, dressed in a crisp blouse and dark jeans. No jewelry, no badge of power. She had come to test her staff's respect for people, not their skin color. But the spa manager, Tracy Holtz, never asked her name. She only saw what she wanted to see. "You people love to pretend," Tracy said, voice flat, eyes sharp. "We have standards here." The word standards landed like a verdict. A young woman in a robe gasped. Another pulled out her phone. "This is insane," she whispered. But no one stepped in. Nia looked at the security guard, his fingers still on her sleeve. "You can let go now." He didn't. Tracy crossed her arms, chin raised. "You're disturbing our guests." The irony hung in the air, disturbing in a place that sold peace. Nia exhaled once, steady, the sound barely louder than the fountain's trickle. Her gaze traveled across the room. The staring clients, the nervous receptionist, the blinking red dot of a security camera. "I booked this appointment weeks ago," she said quietly. Tracy smirked. "Sure you did." Laughter flickered in the background, quick and ugly, but Nia didn't argue. Her silence unnerved them more than anger could. The calm had weight. It pressed on the marble, on the mirrors, on every shallow breath in that perfumed air. From her watch came a soft vibration, a single pulse, subtle but deliberate. "Protocol standby." She lifted her chin slightly, voice even. "You should really check the system before you decide who belongs." Tracy scoffed. "I do not need a computer to tell me who does." Nia met her eyes. "No, you just need to look twice." The room went still again, that dangerous kind of quiet before a storm breaks. And if you had been standing there, you would have felt it too, how the air itself started to change sides. The scent of eucalyptus drifted through the air like a curtain hiding something darker. The Serenité Luxe Spa was supposed to be a sanctuary white marble, gold fixtures, soft jazz humming beneath the sound of running water, but in that moment, it felt more like a stage. Every pair of eyes turned toward the woman standing near the center, the one who refused to move. Dr. Nia Lawson stood straight, arms relaxed, calm but not passive. The faint light from a chandelier broke against her blouse and shimmered across the tiled floor. Behind her, the security guard shifted uneasily, unsure whether to push harder or step back. His uniform was pressed, his jaw tight, but his confidence was slipping. Across from them, spa manager Tracy Holtz planted herself like a statue of authority, arms folded, chin high. "This is a members-only space," she repeated, her voice sharper this time. "You are making the clients uncomfortable." Nia did not blink. "I am a client," Tracy scoffed. "You are not on the list." She snapped her fingers toward the receptionist at the counter, a young woman who looked terrified. "Check her name, now." The receptionist's voice shook. "What name should I search for, ma'am?" "Lawson, Nia Lawson." The keyboard clicked softly. Then the receptionist looked up, eyes uncertain. "The system is frozen. It is not showing anything right now." Tracy turned to Nia, her smirk curling like smoke. "Convenient. Guess that means you are not registered." Someone in a white robe whispered, "This is getting ugly." Another guest leaned in closer, phone camera raised. Nia's tone stayed measured. "You did not even try to confirm my booking before making assumptions." Tracy's laugh was brittle. "Assumptions? Please, we have been trained to recognize our clientele. You do not exactly fit the profile." There it was again, that wordless bias, the kind that hides behind professionalism, the kind that cuts deeper because it pretends not to exist. A guest near the lounge chair murmured, "She is dressed nice. What profile is she talking about? The question hung in the air, unclaimed. The security guard cleared his throat. Ma'am, maybe we should let her explain. Tracy cut him off with a glare. No, she is trespassing. Escort her out before this becomes a scene. Too late. It was already a scene. Every reflection in the mirrored walls showed the same image, a white manager pointing, a black woman standing still. Nia glanced toward the large mirror above the reception desk. For a second, her own reflection looked like someone else, someone younger, someone who once walked away instead of speaking up. She inhaled slowly. Not this time. The receptionist whispered again, her voice barely audible. Miss Holtz, I think the system is updating. It says executive access pending. Tracy snapped. Ignore it. Then she leaned closer to Nia, lowering her voice just enough to sound private, but not enough to hide the contempt. You people always think you can talk your way into places you do not belong. Nia's eyes sharpened. Places I do not belong? She looked around the spa, the brand logos carved into the marble, the scent diffusers she had personally approved 3 years ago. That is an interesting word to use here. Tracy stepped back slightly, uncomfortable but still defensive. I am doing my job. Then do it correctly, Nia said evenly. Check the booking records. I already told you. No, Nia interrupted, her tone calm but iron underneath. You told me what you believe. I asked for what you know. The guests stirred. Someone whispered, she is right. Another added, that manager is out of line. Tracy turned toward them. Defensive now. Everyone here expects a certain standard. I am protecting the experience. The experience? Nia echoed. The experience of humiliation? The room went quiet again. The only sound came from the fountain near the massage corridor, water dripping steadily like a clock counting down to something inevitable. Tracy folded her arms tighter. You can leave willingly, or I can have you escorted out. Nia glanced at the guard. And what would you like to do? He hesitated. Ma'am, I'm just following instructions. That is how most mistakes begin, Nia replied softly. The chandelier above them swayed gently, throwing fractured light across the marble. The tension in the room became visible, like heat rising from a desert road. Even the guests who had been filming lowered their phones, unsure if they were watching injustice or history. Then, from the far corner, a young employee peeked out from behind the towel station. Her badge read Amira. Her voice was small but clear. Miss Holtz, she is in the system. It says owner-level clearance. The words hit the room like thunder in slow motion. Tracy's mouth opened, then closed again. That cannot be right. The owner is... But she stopped, because every face had turned toward her now, waiting. Nia did not smile. She simply straightened her posture and said, Now you have a choice. Do your job or double down on your mistake. Tracy's voice wavered. Who are you? Someone you should have looked twice at, Nia replied. The guard finally released her arm. The guests exhaled collectively, the sound like a wave breaking against the walls. But the moment of clarity was brief. Tracy regained her tone of false authority. Until I get confirmation from corporate, I am treating this as a security breach. Nia's smartwatch pulsed once more, protocol standby. The faint blue light blinked against her wrist. She looked straight at Tracy and said quietly, Then you might want to answer that call from corporate before you speak again. Tracy frowned, confused. Then the phone on the reception desk rang. The entire room froze. Every sound, the fountain, the jazz, the whispered gossip, seemed to vanish into the echo that followed. Whatever was about to happen next would decide who truly belonged in that room. The scent of eucalyptus drifted through the air like a curtain hiding something darker. The Serenité Luxe Spa was supposed to be a sanctuary white marble, gold fixtures, soft jazz humming beneath the sound of running water, but in that moment it felt more like a stage. Every pair of eyes turned toward the woman standing near the center, the one who refused to move. Dr. Nia Lawson stood straight, arms relaxed, calm but not passive. The faint light from a chandelier broke against her blouse and shimmered across the tiled floor. Behind her, the security guard shifted uneasily, unsure whether to push harder or step back. His uniform was pressed, his jaw tight, but his confidence was slipping. Across from them, spa manager Tracy Holtz planted herself like a statue of authority, arms folded, chin high. This is a members-only space, she repeated, her voice sharper this time. You are making the clients uncomfortable. Nia did not blink. I am a client. Tracy scoffed. You are not on the list. She snapped her fingers toward the receptionist at the counter, a young woman who looked terrified. Check her name now. The receptionist's voice shook. What name should I search for, ma'am? Lawson. Nia Lawson. The keyboard clicked softly. Then the receptionist looked up, eyes uncertain. The system is frozen. It is not showing anything right now. Tracy turned to Nia, her smirk curling like smoke. Convenient. Guess that means you are not registered. Someone in a white robe whispered, This is getting ugly. Another guest leaned in closer, phone camera raised. Nia's tone stayed measured. You did not even try to confirm my booking before making assumptions. Tracy's laugh was brittle. Assumptions? Please. We have been trained to recognize our clientele. You do not exactly fit the profile. There it was again, that wordless bias, the kind that hides behind professionalism, the kind that cuts deeper because it pretends not to exist. A guest near the lounge chair murmured, She is dressed nice. What profile is she talking about? The question hung in the air, unclaimed. The security guard cleared his throat. Ma'am, maybe we should let her explain. Tracy cut him off with a glare. No, she is trespassing. Escort her out before this becomes a scene. Too late. It was already a scene. Every reflection in the mirrored walls showed the same image, a white manager pointing, a black woman standing still. Nia glanced toward the large mirror above the reception desk. For a second, her own reflection looked like someone else, someone younger, someone who once walked away instead of speaking up. She inhaled slowly. Not this time. The receptionist whispered again, her voice barely audible. Miss Holtz, I think the system is updating. It says executive access pending. Tracy snapped. Ignore it. Then she leaned closer to Nia, lowering her voice just enough to sound private, but not enough to hide the contempt. You people always think you can talk your way into places you do not belong. Nia's eyes sharpened. Places I do not belong? She looked around the spa, the brand logos carved into the marble, the scent diffusers she had personally approved 3 years ago. That is an interesting word to use here. Tracy stepped back slightly, uncomfortable but still defensive. I am doing my job. Then do it correctly, Nia said evenly. Check the booking records. I already told you. No, Nia interrupted, her tone calm but iron underneath. You told me what you believe. I asked for what you know. The guests stirred. Someone whispered, She is right. Another added, That manager is out of line. Tracy turned toward them, defensive now. Everyone here expects a certain standard. I am protecting the experience. The experience? Nia echoed. The experience of humiliation? The room went quiet again. The only sound came from the fountain near the massage corridor, water dripping steadily like a clock counting down to something inevitable. Tracy folded her arms tighter. You can leave willingly, or I can have you escorted out. Nia glanced at the guard. And what would you like to do? He hesitated. Ma'am, I am just following instructions. That is how most mistakes begin, Nia replied softly. The chandelier above them swayed gently, throwing fractured light across the marble. The tension in the room became visible, like heat rising from a desert road. Even the guests who had been filming lowered their phones, unsure if they were watching injustice or history. Then, from the far corner, a young employee peeked out from behind the towel station. Her badge read Amira. Her voice was small but clear. Miss Holtz, she is in the system. It says owner-level clearance. The words hit the room like thunder in slow motion. Tracy's mouth opened, then closed again. That cannot be right. The owner is... But she stopped, because every face had turned toward her now, waiting. Nia did not smile. She simply straightened her posture and said, Now you have a choice. Do your job or double down on your mistake. Tracy's voice wavered. Who are you? Someone you should have looked twice at, Nia replied. The guard finally released her arm. The guests exhaled collectively, the sound like a wave breaking against the walls. But the moment of clarity was brief. Tracy regained her tone of false authority. Until I get confirmation from corporate, I am treating this as a security breach. Nia's smartwatch pulsed once more, protocol standby. The faint blue light blinked against her wrist. She looked straight at Tracy and said quietly, Then you might want to answer that call from corporate before you speak again. Tracy frowned, confused. Then the phone on the reception desk rang. The entire room froze. Every sound, the fountain, the jazz, the whispered gossip, seemed to vanish into the echo that followed. Whatever was about to happen next would decide who truly belonged in that room. The sound of applause echoed faintly even after Nia stepped into the marble hallway. It was not loud, not wild, just a steady rhythm of acknowledgement. But she did not pause to accept it. Applause was never the goal. It was accountability. Behind her, the glass doors closed, muffling the noise inside the spa. She walked slowly toward the reception atrium, her reflection moving beside her in the wall-length mirrors. Each step felt deliberate, measured, a lesson in restraint. Inside the main lobby, the tension was still heavy. Tracy stood rigid behind the counter, her face pale and tight. Martin Voss was beside her, flipping through his phone, pretending to check messages that did not matter anymore. The receptionist, caught between fear and guilt, stared at her computer screen but did not type. The phone rang again. No one moved. "Answer it," Nia said softly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who did not need to raise it. The receptionist picked up the call. Yes, she is still here." Her expression changed instantly, eyes wide, lips parting in shock. "Oh, yes, sir, right away." She held out the receiver to Martin with trembling hands. "It is corporate headquarters." "Ah." Martin hesitated, then took the phone. His voice dropped low. "This is Martin Voss, regional director." A pause. His eyes darted toward Nia, and his mouth tightened. "Yes, she is here. I understand." The call was brief, less than 30 seconds, but it drained the color from his face. When he set the phone down, his hand was shaking. "Dr. Lawson," he began, voice uneven. "Corporate has confirmed your ownership. They have also instructed full compliance with your directives." Nia gave a small nod. "Good. Then let us begin there." Tracy tried to recover her composure. "Dr. Lawson, I did not know—" Nia cut her off. "That is precisely the problem. You did not know, but you decided anyway. You decided I was less, unworthy, suspicious. You built a judgment faster than you built a fact." Her tone was calm, but every syllable carried weight. The guests who had followed the confrontation into the lobby fell silent again, watching, their phones lowered now not for spectacle, but out of respect. Tracy swallowed hard. "It was never personal." "It was always personal," Nia interrupted, her eyes sharp but steady. "Bias is personal. Every insult, every assumption, every small cruelty dressed up as procedure, it always starts personal." The words struck like glass hitting tile. Martin stepped forward, his palms open in surrender. "Dr. Lawson, I assure you this does not reflect our brand values. We have diversity training, employee standards." Nia turned toward him, her gaze cool. "If your training worked, I would not be standing here right now explaining the difference between professionalism and prejudice." He opened his mouth but said nothing. The silence stretched thin. Nia's eyes swept the room. She saw the housekeepers near the doorway, the young trainees behind the juice bar, the spa attendants peeking from the sauna corridor. Every one of them was watching. Some were afraid. Others were quietly relieved. "I built this brand," Nia continued, "because I believed wellness should belong to everyone. Serenity is not supposed to discriminate. Yet here we are." She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. A single tap, and the screen lit up with a logo, Serenity Group Internal Review Portal. "Dana," she said, her voice calm but commanding, "log this incident. Include the footage and staff names." Her assistant's voice came through clearly on speaker. "Logged. System timestamp confirmed. Do you wish to activate on-site audit?" "Yes," Nia replied. "Audit this branch immediately." Martin blinked. "You cannot do that without corporate—" "I am corporate," Nia said simply. That line hung in the air like thunder. The guests who were still in the lobby stared, some whispering, some nodding. Even the guard who had grabbed her earlier looked down at his shoes, ashamed. Amira stepped forward from the corner, still clutching her badge. "Dr. Lawson," she said quietly, "I want to apologize. I should have said something sooner." Nia turned to her. "You did speak up, Amira, and you will not be punished for doing what was right." Tracy glanced sharply at Amira. "You cannot make that decision." Nia's gaze turned back to Tracy. "Watch me." The room froze. Tracy's mouth opened, then closed again. She looked at Martin for help, but he had stepped back, his expression empty. Nia turned toward the receptionist. "What is your name?" The young woman swallowed. "Jasmine, ma'am." "Jasmine," Nia said gently. This is not your fault. But I want you to remember this moment. When someone in power tells you to look away, that is the moment you are being tested. Jasmine nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, ma'am. Nia straightened, her voice regaining that deliberate steadiness. Effective immediately, this branch will undergo a full operations review. Until then, no staff member above the role of attendant will continue work without clearance. Tracy's eyes widened. You are suspending us? I am holding you accountable, Nia said. You used your authority to humiliate. Now authority will decide what that costs. For a moment, no one spoke. Then a man near the doorway, the same guest who had filmed earlier, said softly, That's justice. The air in the spa shifted again, lighter now but charged with something new. Consequence. Nia turned toward the glass doors. You may keep the serenity music playing, she said, almost to herself. It is time the sound meant something. She walked out without another word. The fountain in the lobby bubbled faintly, and for the first time that day, it sounded like peace earned, not peace sold. Behind her, the staff stood silent, the reflection of their own actions staring back at them in the mirrors. And in that silence, the truth echoed louder than any apology ever could. The doors closed behind Nia with a quiet click, but the echoes of what had just happened followed her down the hall. Each step was deliberate, her heels landing softly against the polished floor, the air still vibrating from the confrontation. The scent of lavender and eucalyptus lingered like a haunting memory, something beautiful that had been used to hide something ugly. For a few seconds, she stood alone in the corridor, the light from a skylight falling across her face. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself. On the surface, she was unshaken. But deep inside, something had started to move, a memory pressing against the walls of her mind, asking to be seen again. Years ago, before the suits and the boardrooms, before anyone called her Dr. Lawson, there had been another spa. Smaller, older, and not nearly as grand as the one she now owned. It was in a quiet corner of Chicago. She had been 23, working as an intern for a wellness company that claimed to celebrate inclusion. She remembered walking in for her first day, smiling, eager, ready to learn. And then she remembered the look. The receptionist had looked her up and down, lips tight, voice polite but cold. Deliveries are through the back door, she had said. Nia had frozen, holding her new employee ID in her hand. It took her several seconds to realize that the woman thought she was there to drop off packages. When Nia explained that she was the new intern, the woman's smile did not reach her eyes. Of course, she said, but her tone made it sound like an accusation, not an apology. That day, Nia went home and wrote something on a torn notebook page. She kept it for years. It said, They will never see you until you build the place yourself. Now, standing in the hallway of her own spa, that old note felt like prophecy fulfilled and also like a wound that never truly healed. Her smartwatch vibrated softly, breaking the memory. A message glowed across the screen from Dana, her assistant. Dana, corporate has confirmed full lockdown for the branch. Media inquiry requests pending. Would you like to respond? Nia typed back quickly. Nia, not yet. Let truth move first. Then we'll speak. She slipped the watch beneath her sleeve, straightened her blouse, and began walking again. Each step forward was an act of reclaiming space. As she rounded the corner toward the main exit, she noticed Amira standing near the glass doors, hands clasped nervously. The young employee looked like she wanted to speak, but was afraid to interrupt. Amira, Nia said gently, stopping a few feet away. You did well in there. Amira shook her head. I did not do enough. I froze. I wanted to help earlier, but... You spoke when it mattered, Nia interrupted. That is what counts. Courage is not about timing, it is about truth. Amira nodded slowly, eyes glossy with emotion. Thank you, Dr. Lawson. I never thought I would see something like this happen here. I thought things were changing. Nia's expression softened, but her tone stayed grounded. They are changing, just not fast enough. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small business card. It bore the Serenité Group emblem in silver foil. If you ever feel unheard again, she said, handing it to Amira, call that number. The next time you see someone being disrespected, I expect you to do more than speak up. I expect you to lead. Amira took the card carefully, as though it were something sacred. Yes, ma'am. Nia nodded once, then turned toward the glass doors. Through them, She could see the reflection of the city Atlanta's skyline shimmering in the midday light, indifferent yet alive. It reminded her that the world outside still carried the same quiet battles, the same coded assumptions. But she also knew she was not the same woman who had once walked away in silence. Her phone rang. Dana again. "Dr. Lawson," her assistant said through the speaker. "The audit protocol has started. The regional HR director has been notified. They want to know if you will give a public statement." Nia looked back toward the spa. Through the tinted glass, she could still see Tracy standing at the counter, frozen in disbelief. Martin was on his phone, likely calling someone higher up to try and explain the unexplainable. Guests lingered near the lobby, whispering, filming, absorbing the moment like witnesses in a modern-day courtroom. Nia's voice was calm. "Not yet, Dana. Let them sit with it. Sometimes silence teaches faster than press releases." "Yes, ma'am. Anything else?" "Yes. Make sure Amira's employment is protected, and double her training budget." "Understood." The line disconnected. Nia stepped outside into the sunlight. The warmth hit her skin, grounding her in the present again. Cars passed, horns distant, a siren wailing blocks away. She stood there for a long moment, letting the noise of the world wash over her. The irony was not lost on her. The very company she had built to promote peace had just exposed the unrest buried inside its walls. A journalist stood near the curb, camera slung over his shoulder. He hesitated before approaching. "Dr. Lawson, is it true that you were denied service inside your own spa?" Nia turned to him, her expression unreadable. "It is true that I was tested," she said, "and it is true that they failed." He started to ask another question, but she lifted a hand gently. "You will get your story," she said, "but make sure you tell it right. This is not about revenge, it is about recognition." The reporter nodded, stepping back as she walked toward her car. She opened the door, paused, and looked back one last time at the glass building that shimmered in the sunlight. The Serenité Luxe Spa, beautiful, calm, and now, painfully honest. Inside, Tracy still stood in the same place. Martin was arguing quietly into his phone. The receptionist looked ready to cry, and in one corner, Amira watched the door close behind her mentor. Nia smiled faintly. For the first time that day, it was a real smile, not of triumph, but of clarity, because this was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of something that had been waiting too long to rise, the moment when dignity stopped whispering and finally spoke. As she drove away, the sun caught the edge of her windshield, turning the reflection into a flare of light, bright, unyielding, and alive. The city moved on, unaware that inside a single spa, justice had quietly rewritten its definition. Inside the Serenité Luxe Spa, the atmosphere had changed, but not everyone could accept it. The silence that followed Nia's departure was not peace, it was paralysis. The scent of eucalyptus still hung in the air, but now it mingled with fear. Every sound seemed louder, the soft trickle of the fountain, the hum of the air system, the muted buzz of cell phones recording history. Tracy stood behind the counter, her nails tapping against the marble in small, nervous bursts. She could feel the eyes of the guests burning through her. The mask of authority she had worn so tightly was starting to crack. Martin stood a few feet away, pacing near the reception desk, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, urgent, and defensive. "Yes, sir." She confirmed ownership. "Yes, Dr. Lawson. No, I did not know she was coming. We were following standard procedure." Even he could hear how weak that sounded. He turned away from the guests, lowering his voice further. "I understand, sir. Yes, I will cooperate fully." He hung up and exhaled heavily, rubbing his temples. Tracy looked at him, her voice tight with panic. "What did they say?" Martin hesitated, then met her eyes. "They said she's activating a full internal audit, effective immediately." Tracy blinked. "An audit? On us?" "On this entire branch," Martin said. "Every policy, every staff file, every guest complaint, everything." The receptionist Jasmine looked up from her computer, voice small. "Does that mean we're all suspended?" Martin's answer was slow, reluctant. "Not yet, but it means corporate will decide what happens next. For now, keep your stations clear, and don't delete anything." Tracy scoffed, trying to salvage what was left of her pride. "This is ridiculous. She set us up. She came here dressed like that on purpose. She wanted a reaction." The words came out sharp, bitter, desperate. But even as she said them, The faces around her made it clear that no one was convinced, not even herself. From the corner, Amira stepped forward, holding a clipboard she no longer needed. Her voice was soft but firm. "She did not set you up. She tested you, and you failed." Tracy spun toward her, anger flaring in her eyes. "Watch your tone, Amira. You're lucky you still have a job right now." Amira didn't flinch. "Maybe, but at least I still have integrity." The sentence landed like a blow. The guests who were still lingering by the lounge looked at each other, then at Amira. One of them, a middle-aged woman wrapped in a white robe, nodded slowly. "She's right," the woman said aloud. "We saw everything." Tracy's composure crumbled. "You do not understand what it's like to manage people. There are protocols." "No," Amira interrupted. "There are choices. You chose humiliation over hospitality. You chose control over compassion." The air tightened again, that same quiet tension returning, heavy and thick. The sound of the fountain became louder, like a clock counting down. Martin stepped between them, raising a hand. "Enough. This is not helping anyone." He looked at Amira. "Go back to your station." Amira shook her head. "No. You do not get to silence me after what just happened. I have worked here for 2 years, and I have seen this pattern before. The same look, the same words. You don't look like you belong. Every time, it happens to someone who looks like me, or her." She gestured toward the door where Nia had stood minutes ago. "And every time, you tell us to stay quiet. But look where silence got us." Her words echoed against the marble walls. Some of the guests began clapping softly. Others nodded, murmuring their agreement. Martin's face was red now, but not from anger, from shame. He turned away, unable to look at her. Then the sound of an alert broke through the air, a chime from the overhead speakers. The spa's main screen, usually reserved for ambient music and appointment schedules, flickered. The Serenité Group logo appeared, followed by a message. "Internal audit in progress. Do not shut down systems. All staff cooperation required." Gasps filled the lobby. The screen scrolled again, showing an instruction. "All branches will be reviewed under updated bias and conduct protocols effective immediately." Tracy's knees went weak. "She's really doing it," she whispered. Amira folded her arms. "She warned you." Guests were already whispering, phones back in their hands, recording again. One man in a navy blazer spoke quietly into his camera. "We just witnessed corporate justice in real time." Tracy turned to Martin, her voice cracking. "You have to stop this. Call someone. Anyone." Martin shook his head slowly. "You still don't get it. There is no one higher to call. She is the call." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Jasmine looked up from her desk again, her eyes wide with something between fear and admiration. She said serenity should belong to everyone. Maybe now it finally will. The line silenced the room. Even Tracy couldn't respond. From somewhere behind the spa's tinted windows, the faint sound of applause drifted again, people outside who had seen the video already spreading online. The world was watching. Tracy felt her chest tighten. "This can't be happening," she whispered almost to herself. "This can't be the end." Amira looked at her with a strange mix of sadness and certainty. It's not the end, it's the beginning of accountability. Outside, sunlight cut through the glass, spilling across the marble floor like a spotlight. The reflections from the water shimmered up the walls, bending, shifting, alive. Martin stepped back and adjusted his tie, his voice low. "We clean up this mess, cooperate, and maybe we keep our jobs." Tracy's laugh was hollow. "Or maybe she already decided our fate." No one disagreed. As the guests began to leave, one woman stopped near the counter and looked directly at Tracy. Her voice was soft but firm. "Next time, try treating people like they matter before you find out who they are." The words hit harder than any reprimand. Tracy said nothing. She simply watched the guests disappear through the same glass doors where it had all begun. The spa was quiet again, but it was no longer the kind of quiet that comforted. It was the quiet that comes when the truth finally takes up all the space. Outside the Serenité Luxe Spa, the late afternoon sun poured over the city like liquid gold. Cars moved in slow lines along the avenue, unaware that just behind those glass doors, an empire had shifted. Nia stood across the street beside her black sedan, watching the reflection of her building in the tinted windows. It gleamed like nothing had happened, peaceful, serene, immaculate, but she knew better. She knew what it looked like when something beautiful began to rot from the inside. Her phone buzzed. It was Dana again. "Dr. Lawson, the internal audit has officially gone live across all branches. The system shows over 400 staff accounts are under review, including senior managers in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles." Nia listened without surprise. "Good," she said softly. It was time. Dana hesitated on the line. "You know the press is already running with it. Hashtags are trending. Black CEO fired her own staff. Wellness and racism. Luxury without humanity." Nia closed her eyes for a brief moment, feeling the weight of it. Let them talk. This is not about a scandal, it is about a standard. "Understood," Dana replied. "Do you want to issue an official statement tonight?" "Not yet," Nia said. "We will speak when the facts speak for us." She ended the call and slipped the phone into her bag. Across the street, she could see the faint outlines of people still inside the spa, moving slowly, unsure of what to do next. Behind those walls, she could imagine the frantic energy, the panic, the denial, the confusion. But she did not need to witness it to understand it. She had lived it once, on the other side. A man's voice broke her train of thought. "Excuse me, are you Dr. Lawson?" She turned. It was the same reporter from earlier, this time joined by a small camera crew. They were cautious, almost reverent. "Yes," she said. He lifted his microphone. "We are live with local news. People want to know, why did you visit your spa today without announcing yourself?" Nia met his gaze. "Because the truth never schedules an appointment." The reporter blinked, caught off guard. "Do you feel this incident reflects a larger issue in the wellness industry?" "It reflects a larger issue everywhere," she said, her tone even but firm. "We have built spaces that speak of peace while practicing exclusion. It is not enough to decorate equality, it has to be lived. Otherwise, it is just another product being sold." "Oh." The reporter nodded, eyes wide, as though he had just realized the story was much bigger than what he came for. "Dr. Lawson, many are calling your response today the perfect revenge. Would you describe it that way?" Nia's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "Revenge implies anger. This was clarity, and clarity is what justice looks like when it stops asking for permission." The crowd around them had started to grow. People with phones, commuters stopping at the crosswalk, even a few employees from nearby businesses, all drawn by curiosity and the magnetic calm of the woman standing in front of the luxury spa that had just gone viral. Someone from the crowd called out, "We saw the video. They had no idea who you were." Nia turned slightly, her voice carrying across the small crowd. "They did not need to know who I was to treat me with respect. That is the point." "Oh." A murmur of agreement rippled through the onlookers. Cameras clicked. The reporter lowered his microphone. "Thank you, Dr. Lawson. That is all we needed." She nodded once and stepped into her car. But before closing the door, she looked back one more time. Through the glass, she could see Amira near the counter, speaking quietly to Jasmine. They both looked shaken but somehow stronger. The seeds had been planted. As the car pulled away, Nia rested her head briefly against the seat. Her driver glanced in the rearview mirror. "Rough day, ma'am?" She smiled faintly. "Necessary day." They drove through downtown traffic, passing billboards advertising health, luxury, and self-care. The irony was bitter. Peace for sale, she thought. But not for everyone. Her phone rang again. This time, the name flashing on the screen made her pause. It was Kenneth Bell, chairman of the Serenité Group board. She answered, already knowing what was coming. "Nia," his deep voice began, calm but layered with concern. "The board is proud of your composure, but they are also nervous. The videos have millions of views. Investors are calling. They want to know how you plan to control the narrative." "I am not here to control a narrative, Kenneth," she said. "I am here to correct a culture." "You know I agree with you," he said carefully. "But the board is under pressure. If we do not issue a formal response tonight, the media will write its own version. Some are already calling this the spa scandal." Nia looked out the window as the skyline stretched upward in silver and glass. Let them. Scandal fades. Systems do not, unless you break them. Kenneth sighed. "You always did play the long game." "I do not play," she replied quietly. "I build." There was a pause, and then his voice softened. "What do you need from us?" "Transparency," she said. Every report, every complaint, every ignored email about discrimination from the past 5 years. I want it all pulled and reviewed publicly. That will shake people, he warned. It should. Another pause, longer this time. Then Kenneth said, "All right, Nia, you have my support." She ended the call and let the quiet return. Outside, traffic slowed as the evening crowd filled the sidewalks. A bus passed with an advertisement for Serenité Luxe. "Find your calm," Nia almost laughed. "Maybe now," she murmured, "we will finally earn that slogan." Her phone vibrated once more, an alert from the company dashboard. The headline read, "Social response, positive 87%. Supportive comments trending worldwide." But she did not smile. Praise was not the goal either. Change was. The car turned a corner, and through the rear window, the spa disappeared behind a curve of glass and light. Inside, she knew the real work had just begun. The audit, the reflection, the reckoning. And somewhere among those walls, one young employee, Amira, was standing taller than before. For Nia, that was enough. Justice was never loud. It was the quiet shift when people finally began to see. She leaned back against the seat, eyes half closed. The city lights blurred past like memories, and for the first time in years, she felt something close to peace. Not the kind sold in spas, but the kind that comes from knowing the truth had finally entered the room. Inside the Serenité Luxe Spa, the evening light filtered through the tall glass walls, soft and golden, but the calm it brought was fragile. The staff had stopped pretending to work. Phones buzzed with notifications, whispers crossed the marble floor, and the once perfect harmony of a luxury retreat now sounded like quiet panic. Amira sat behind the towel counter, her hands clasped tightly together. Every few seconds, she glanced toward the reception desk, where Martin and Tracy argued in low, heated voices. The guests were gone now. The air smelled faintly of citrus and disinfectant, a sterile kind of peace that no longer meant comfort. Martin's voice rose. "We cannot just stand here and wait for corporate to bury us. Do you have any idea what an internal audit like this can uncover?" Tracy's reply was sharp, defensive. "I know exactly what it will uncover. It will show that I was following procedure, that is all." "You called the owner of the company a trespasser," Martin hissed. "No procedure can explain that." Tracy crossed her arms. "She set me up. No one shows up unannounced like that. No jewelry, no driver, no assistant. She wanted to make me look like the villain." Amira stood. Her voice was quiet but steady. "You did not need her to make you look like that. You did that yourself." Tracy turned, her glare sharp enough to cut through glass. "Excuse me?" Amira did not flinch. "You saw a black woman standing in a luxury spa, and you assumed she did not belong. That is not procedure. That is prejudice." The silence that followed was heavy. Even Martin did not speak. The only sound came from the fountain, a slow, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat in the distance. Tracy's voice cracked. "You think you know everything because she praised you before she left. You think that makes you special?" "No," Amira said. "It makes me responsible." Her words landed with quiet force. For a brief second, she remembered how Nia had looked at her steady, proud, calm, and she felt that same stillness rise inside her now. Martin sighed, pulling a hand over his face. "Enough. We need to cooperate. That is the only way to keep this branch from collapsing." But even as he spoke, the main screen at the front of the lobby flickered again. The Serenité Group logo appeared, followed by a new message. "On-site verification in progress. Please stand by." A voice came through the overhead speakers, a calm, professional tone. "This is the Corporate Compliance Division. Please prepare identification badges and employee records for immediate review. You are being monitored for protocol adherence." The announcement sent a shiver through the room. The security cameras above the reception desk tilted slightly, motorized, focusing on the group. It was clear now. Headquarters was watching live. Tracy took a step back, whispering under her breath. "Oh, my God." Amira exhaled slowly. "Welcome to transparency." The sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. A woman entered, wearing a gray blazer and carrying a tablet. Her badge read Compliance Officer. She looked calm, precise, and utterly in control. "Good evening," she said. "My name is Elena Wright. I have been dispatched by corporate to conduct the preliminary review of this location." She glanced at each of them, her tone polite but clinical. "Which of you is the branch manager?" Tracy straightened, forcing a professional smile. "That would be me." Tracy Holtz, Manager of Client Relations. Elena nodded. Thank you, Miss Holtz. I will need to review your incident report regarding Dr. Lawson. Tracy's face faltered. Incident report? Yes, Elena said, looking up from her tablet. Dr. Lawson has requested that every staff member involved in today's interaction submit a written account within the next 24 hours. Failure to comply will result in immediate administrative action. Tracy's lips parted, but no words came out. Martin spoke instead. We will provide full cooperation. Elena nodded, typing something on her tablet. Good. For context, the internal footage has already been reviewed by headquarters. Dr. Lawson has also submitted her personal recording. Amira felt her heart pound. She had forgotten that Nia's smartwatch had been recording everything. Elena's voice continued, calm and deliberate. For clarity, Dr. Lawson stated that she wishes no termination without review. However, she has requested this branch remain closed for 72 hours for retraining and bias reevaluation. The words fell like a sentence. 72 hours. Closed. Martin tried to stay composed. Understood. Elena turned to leave but paused, her gaze resting briefly on Amira. Miss Daniels? Amira straightened. Yes? Elena's expression softened slightly. Dr. Lawson noted your professionalism under pressure. She has recommended you for internal leadership mentorship. Congratulations. For a second, Amira could not breathe. Thank you, she said, barely above a whisper. Tracy looked away, her jaw tight. Elena nodded once more, then left the lobby, the sound of her heels fading into the corridor. When the doors closed behind her, the silence returned, but it was different now. It was the silence of reckoning. Tracy's voice broke it. Leadership, mentorship, she said bitterly. Unbelievable. She rewarded the one who embarrassed us. Amira turned slowly. No. She rewarded the one who remembered what respect looks like. Tracy stared at her, trembling. You will regret this attitude, Amira. When corporate finishes with me, I will be reinstated. And when that happens, Martin interrupted, his tone weary. Enough, Tracy, it is over. But Tracy shook her head, her voice lowering into something darker. You think this is about one mistake? You think people like her stay untouchable forever? Wait until the news cycle changes. Wait until investors start to worry. Amira looked at her sadly. That is the difference between her and you. You wait for permission. She creates it. Martin rubbed his temples. We should go home. Tracy stayed silent, her anger coiling inward. She looked at the reflection of herself in the glass wall, pale, shaken, smaller than she had ever appeared before. For the first time, she saw what everyone else saw. Not authority, not elegance, just fear wearing a uniform. The fountain continued to trickle softly behind her, its rhythm steady and indifferent. Outside, the sky deepened into twilight. The lights of the spa glowed from within, bright but cold. And somewhere, miles away, Dr. Nia Lawson watched the live security feed from her office, silent but alert. The audit had only just begun, but the truth was already at work. Quiet, precise, unstoppable. The next morning, Atlanta woke under a gray sky, the kind that dimmed the shine of every glass building downtown. At exactly 8 o'clock, the Serenité Luxe Spa reopened, but only for the audit team. The sign on the door read, "Closed for private review." No guests, no appointments, no music. Just the sound of footsteps, keyboards, and the slow unraveling of everything that had been hidden beneath luxury. Inside, the lobby was stripped of its serenity. No candles burned, no fountain whispered peace. The marble gleamed coldly beneath the fluorescent lights. Compliance officers moved through the space with quiet precision, collecting data, recording testimonies, and scanning security footage. The sound of their tablets clicking was steady and relentless. Martin Voss stood near the counter, eyes hollow, coffee untouched in his hand. Every few minutes he checked his phone, but there were no updates that mattered. He looked smaller than he had the day before, his posture hunched, his confidence worn down by the constant realization of what this had become. Tracy sat across the lobby, tapping her foot, trying to look composed. Her makeup was flawless, her hair carefully styled, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion. Every few seconds, she looked toward the main doors, half expecting someone, anyone, to walk in and fix it. Amira arrived quietly, her employee badge clipped neatly to her blazer. She greeted the audit team respectfully, then took her place behind the counter. The others glanced at her with a mix of wariness and reluctant respect. "Morning," Martin said. Morning, she replied, polite but firm. He hesitated, unsure how to begin. I heard about your mentorship offer, he said finally. That is impressive. Amira nodded. Dr. Lawson believes leadership should come from empathy. I plan to prove her right. Tracy rolled her eyes. Empathy does not keep a business running. Discipline does. Amira met her gaze. Then perhaps that is why your kind of discipline keeps breaking people. The room went quiet. Even the auditors looked up briefly before returning to their work. One of them, a tall woman named Elena Wright, the same compliance officer from the night before, approached the group. Miss Holtz, she said evenly, I need your written account of yesterday's incident. Tracy's chin lifted. You already have the footage. We also require your perspective, Elena replied. Please include your reasoning for requesting security intervention. Tracy frowned but reached for the provided tablet. Fine. Elena turned next to Martin. And you, Mr. Voss, will submit your version after her. Corporate will cross-reference both. Martin nodded. Of course. As Elena walked away, Tracy muttered under her breath. She is enjoying this. Amira heard her. She is doing her job, something you should have done differently. Tracy looked up sharply. You have no idea the pressure we are under. Guests demand perfection. Corporate demands numbers. And then someone like her shows up. She stopped herself, realizing what she had just implied. Amira folded her arms. Someone like her? Tracy's lips trembled slightly. You know what I meant. No, Amira said softly. That is the problem. You always know exactly what you mean. You just hope no one calls you out on it. Oh. The silence that followed was heavy. One of the auditors cleared his throat in the distance, trying to diffuse the tension, but the truth had already been spoken aloud. At 9:30, the sound of a new voice filled the lobby, a voice that froze everyone mid-breath. Good morning. Dr. Nia Lawson stood in the doorway, dressed in a navy blue suit, her hair pulled back, her expression composed. She had come quietly, without fanfare, but her presence changed the room instantly. Authority had returned, and it did not need to raise its volume. Elena approached quickly, standing straighter. Dr. Lawson, we were not expecting you until noon. I like to see progress early, Nia said. She looked around, taking in the sterile stillness of the space. It seems different without the illusion of peace, does it not? No one spoke. She moved closer to the counter where Martin and Tracy stood. Mr. Voss, Miss Holtz. They both straightened automatically. I have reviewed your preliminary reports, she continued, and the footage, and the statements from witnesses. I am giving each of you a chance to tell me here, now why you thought I did not belong in my own building. Tracy's throat tightened. Dr. Lawson, No titles right now, Nia interrupted softly. Just people. Why? Tracy hesitated. It was a misunderstanding. You came in without an appointment, dressed casually, and I made an assumption. I was protecting the environment for our clients. Nia tilted her head slightly. Protecting them from what, exactly? Tracy's lips parted, but no answer came. Nia looked at Martin. And you? Why did you support her decision? Martin swallowed hard. I trusted my manager's judgment, even when that judgment was built on bias. He lowered his gaze. I did not realize it until it was too late. Nia studied them both, her silence more powerful than any reprimand. When she finally spoke again, her tone was calm but precise. What happened here is not an isolated incident. It is a symptom, and I will not allow it to infect what I built. She turned slightly toward Amira. Miss Daniels. Amira stood taller. Yes, ma'am. You handled yourself with grace yesterday. You remembered your humanity when others forgot theirs. That is the foundation of leadership. Do not lose it. Amira nodded, eyes steady. I will not. Nia faced the group again. This spa will remain closed until further notice. When it reopens, it will operate under new management and new principles. There will be no luxury here without dignity. Her words filled the space like a verdict. Tracy's eyes glistened, but she said nothing. Martin simply nodded, the weight of consequence finally visible in his posture. Nia stepped toward the door. Before leaving, she turned back once more. For the record, she said quietly, I did not come here to fire anyone. I came to see if my dream was still alive. Yesterday, I found out it was not. So today, I begin again. And with that, she walked out, leaving the echo of her words hanging in the air, a promise and a warning all at once. The fountain started again automatically, its gentle trickle filling the silence. But this time, it did not sound peaceful. It sounded like cleansing. The day stretched long inside the Serenité Luxe Spa. By afternoon, the once bustling lobby had become a sterile, echoing shell. The fountain murmured faintly, its rhythm too calm for a place that had just been split open by truth. Every conversation happened in low voices. Every glance held caution. No one was sure where the new boundaries were or who would still be here by the end of the day. Tracy sat at the reception desk, shoulders tight, scrolling through her half-written report. Her fingers trembled. Words blurred on the screen: procedure, security, member verification, compliance. None of them felt real anymore. None of them could hide the ugliness that had been caught on camera. Martin stood by the windows, staring out at the city skyline. He had not spoken to anyone since Nia's departure that morning. He had nodded when Elena gave him new instructions and then said nothing more. For the first time in years, he looked like a man unsure of what he believed in. Amira entered the room quietly, a clipboard in hand. Her presence seemed to shift the air around her, steady, measured, unafraid. She moved past Tracy without looking, approaching the group of auditors near the lounge area. They greeted her politely, already aware that she was the one Dr. Lawson had personally acknowledged. Tracy's jaw tightened. "Unbelievable," she muttered under her breath. "She turns one speech into a promotion." Amira ignored it. She had heard enough of those comments to recognize their real meaning. She focused on her task, checking the logs, ensuring all access records were submitted. Elena, the compliance officer, stood near the front, addressing the room. "Corporate has authorized a temporary leadership structure until the board finalizes new appointments. Operations will remain suspended, but the staff will undergo training beginning tomorrow morning." Tracy crossed her arms. "And who will be leading that training?" Elena looked up from her tablet. "Dr. Lawson requested that Miss Amira Daniels assist with coordination." The words landed like a spark in a room filled with gas. Tracy's face flushed red. "Her? She has been here for 2 years. I have managed this branch for 7. Elena's tone remained neutral. "Your management record is under review. Until it is cleared, your authority is suspended." Tracy opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her hands gripped the edge of the counter until her knuckles whitened. "You cannot just erase people's careers because of one mistake." Elena looked at her calmly. "One mistake can reveal everything you refuse to see." The silence that followed was sharp. Even Martin did not defend her this time. When the auditors left to inspect the therapy rooms, the 3 of them remained: Tracy, Martin, and Amira. The air was heavy with the weight of things that could no longer be undone. Tracy finally spoke, her voice quieter now. "Do you think she feels good about this? About humiliating us in front of the world?" Amira turned to her slowly. "I do not think she feels good. I think she feels responsible." Tracy let out a dry laugh. "Responsible? For what? Ruining reputations?" "For revealing them," Amira said softly. "There is a difference." Martin rubbed the back of his neck, staring down at the floor. "We made a choice," he said finally. "We saw a woman who did not fit what we expected, and we acted on it. I will never forget the look on her face when she said, 'You should have looked twice.'" He sighed. "That line will follow me for the rest of my career." Amira nodded. "Good. That means you learned something." Tracy turned toward the glass, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "Do you know what I see when I look at that door now? I see the moment everything I built collapsed. Years of loyalty, effort, everything, and for what?" Amira's expression softened. Maybe it did not collapse. Maybe it just revealed what was already broken. Tracy flinched, then said nothing. From outside, the faint hum of traffic filled the quiet. A few pedestrians stopped to look at the "Closed for Review" sign taped to the front door. Some took pictures, others whispered. The story had already escaped the building, traveling faster than anyone inside could control. Amira gathered her notes and started toward the hallway. Before she disappeared from sight, she turned back. "For what it is worth," she said quietly, "I do not hate you, Miss Holtz. I just wish you had seen people the way Dr. Lawson does. She does not see categories. She sees capability." Tracy looked down at her hands. "And what do you see when you look at me?" Amira paused. "I see someone who forgot who she was working for, not the company, but the people." Ugh. When Amira walked away, her footsteps echoed softly against the marble. Tracy stayed still, her reflection faint in the glass, flawless on the surface, fractured beneath. Martin approached slowly. "You should go home, Tracy. Get some rest." She shook her head. "No. If I leave now, I will not come back." Martin's voice was low. "Maybe that is what needs to happen." He turned and left her there, standing alone in the empty lobby. The lights dimmed automatically as evening settled in. The fountain shut off, its final drops falling like a sigh. Tracy moved to the reception counter and looked at her own reflection one last time. Her image stared back, haunted, smaller than before. For the first time, she whispered the truth she had been avoiding. I did not see her. I never even tried. Outside, a storm was beginning to roll across the skyline, the first raindrops tapping gently against the glass. It was soft at first, then steady, cleansing the windows, washing away the fingerprints, the smudges, the traces of arrogance. Inside, under that gray light, the spa looked different, honest, exposed. And for the first time since it opened, Serenité Luxe lived up to its name. It was no longer selling serenity, it was earning it. The storm lingered over Atlanta through the night, turning the city's glass towers into shifting mirrors of lightning and cloud. By dawn, the streets were washed clean. The air felt heavy but new, the way it does after something destructive has finally finished its work. Inside Serenité Luxe Spa, the silence was almost sacred. No music, no scent diffusers, no murmured greetings, just the hollow echo of a place stripped of its pretense. The air smelled faintly of rain and fresh linen from the night cleaning crew. Dr. Nia Lawson interred quietly, alone. She had not planned to return this soon, but something inside her had drawn her back. It was not anger anymore. It was reflection, the kind that follows fire. She walked slowly through the lobby, her heels clicking softly against the marble. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same. The reception counter gleamed, but its shine carried guilt. The mirrors reflected her image, but they also reflected absence of empathy, of grace, of truth. She stopped near the fountain. It was turned off again, the basin half full, the water still. Her reflection rippled faintly in it. She could see her own face, calm but lined with fatigue, a trace of sadness behind the composure. Nia closed her eyes and breathed deeply. She remembered something her grandmother once said. Silence is not weakness. It is where power learns to speak. For the first time in 24 hours, she allowed herself to simply be silent. No phone calls, no press, no corporate voices in her ear. Just stillness. That was when she heard the soft shuffle of footsteps. Dr. Lawson? She turned. It was Amira, dressed neatly, holding a small folder against her chest. Her expression was cautious, respectful. Good morning, Nia said gently. You are early. Amira nodded. I could not sleep. I wanted to make sure the new training schedule was ready for review. Nia gestured for her to come closer. Walk with me. They moved through the corridor together, past the spa rooms that had once promised healing but had harbored judgment instead. The scent of lavender still lingered faintly in the walls, though it could not disguise the aftertaste of truth. Nia spoke quietly. Do you know why I came here unannounced, Amira? Amira hesitated. To test them? Nia shook her head. To test the culture. Luxury is never about money. It is about how comfort is distributed. I wanted to see if the comfort I built was reaching everyone or only those who fit the image. They stopped beside the glass door of the sauna room. The interior lights were dimmed, steam faintly fogging the window. It was strange to see the place empty, quiet. Nia continued. I thought I could lead this company from the top. I thought policies, training, and slogans could erase bias. But bias hides deeper than language. It hides in tone, in looks, in habits we call normal. Ender. Amira looked down. When she grabbed your arm, I wanted to stop it. I froze. Nia studied her. And yet you found your voice later. That is what matters. You learned that silence is not always peace. Amira met her eyes. How do you stay calm, even when people disrespect you like that? Nia smiled faintly. Calm is not the absence of rage, it is mastery over it. When you know who you are, you do not need to shout. They walked back toward the lobby. The morning light filtered through the glass walls, painting everything in pale gold. The storm clouds had started to break. Nia stopped at the counter and turned toward the young woman beside her. You remind me of myself 20 years ago, she said softly, hungry to prove worth in rooms that were never built for us. Amira's voice shook. Did you ever think about quitting? Every day, Nia said. But then I remembered who I was fighting for. Not the people in those rooms, but the ones who would come after me. A soft chime sounded from Nia's smartwatch. She tapped it once. Dana, patch in the regional directors. A small voice came through the speaker. "You are live, Dr. Lawson." Nia straightened. "Good morning, everyone," she began. "This is not a reprimand call. It is a reminder. Yesterday revealed what I have feared for years, that our brand learned how to sell peace without practicing it. That ends now." She paused. The quiet hum of connection filled the space. "From this day forward, no branch will be rewarded for appearance. Performance reviews will include ethical evaluations and client equity scores. Every location will host one community wellness day per quarter, open to anyone, not just members. Wellness cannot be private anymore. It must be shared." Her tone was calm, but her words cut cleanly. "This spa," she continued, "will remain closed for reconstruction, not of walls, but of mindset. We will reopen when it deserves the name Serenity. Until then, I want every manager to remember, dignity is not a courtesy we extend. It is a right we honor." Dana's voice returned, soft and awed. "Understood, Dr. Lawson. The board is listening." "Good," Nia said. "Then let them hear silence for a moment." She ended the call. The faint hum faded. For a few seconds, neither woman spoke. The weight of Nia's words settled into the walls like a promise. Amira finally broke the silence. "It must be hard," she said softly, "to lead and still carry the pain they give you." Nia's gaze softened. "Pain is not the enemy. Complacency is. Pain wakes us up. It reminds us that something worth loving still needs defending." Outside, the first light rain began to fall again, thin and silver. It streaked down the glass like tears the building had been waiting to shed. Nia turned back to the fountain, then pressed a small button on her watch. The water began to flow again, clear and smooth. The sound filled the lobby, steady and pure. She looked at Amira and said quietly, "Every empire has its silence. What matters is what breaks it." And for the first time since the humiliation, the sound of running water did not sting. It sounded like healing finding its way back home. That afternoon, the sky cleared completely, leaving Atlanta bathed in a soft amber light. The rain had washed every building clean, and the air carried that rare freshness that only follows a storm. Inside her downtown office, Dr. Nia Lawson stood by the window, watching traffic crawl along Peachtree Street. The city looked calm from above, but she knew beneath that stillness, 100 conversations were happening about her name, her company, and her decision. Her desk was covered with reports, statements, and media summaries. The logo of Serenity Group glowed faintly on her monitor, surrounded by headlines that were spreading faster than she could read them. CEO confronts racism at her own spa. Luxury meets accountability. Wellness industry faces reckoning. Nia sighed quietly. Fame had never been her ambition, but leadership was not about comfort. It was about endurance. Her intercom buzzed. "Dr. Lawson," said Dana, her assistant. "Mr. Bell is here. Send him in." "Oh." Kenneth Bell entered, his suit immaculate as always, though his expression carried the exhaustion of someone who had spent the last 24 hours extinguishing corporate panic. He closed the door behind him. "You have started a revolution," he said flatly. Nia turned from the window, calm. Revolutions start themselves when truth gets tired of waiting. Kenneth dropped into the chair across from her desk, rubbing his temples. "The board is split. Half of them think you are a visionary. The other half thinks you are a wildfire that will scare away investors." "Both can be true," Nia said. He gave a low laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was true. "You realize the video has over 8 million views now? I have reporters calling me from London, Tokyo, and Johannesburg. They are calling you the CEO who refused to whisper." Nia raised an eyebrow. "A poetic title, though not entirely accurate. I did not refuse to whisper. I simply stopped allowing others to shout over me." Kenneth leaned forward, his tone softening. "The board wants to know your next step. If you plan to make a public statement, now is the time. If you stay silent, the story will take its own shape." Nia smiled faintly. "It already has. The story is not mine anymore. It belongs to the people who saw what happened and recognized themselves in it." Kenneth studied her for a long moment. "You really believe this can change things, don't you?" "I do not believe," she said quietly. "I plan." He nodded slowly. "You have always been unshakable, Nia. That is what terrifies them. They do not know what to do with a black woman who owns her silence." Nia's gaze drifted toward the glass wall, where the reflection of the city shimmered. They do not need to know what to do with me. They need to learn what to do with themselves. Her smartwatch vibrated softly. She tapped the screen and read the message. Audit update. Preliminary results bias confirmed in 7 branches. Recommended action. Mandatory retraining and leadership review. She looked up. The audit is working. Kenneth whistled under his breath. 7 branches? That is going to send shockwaves through the company. It should, Nia said. If bias hides, we expose it. If systems protect it, we rebuild them. He stood, buttoning his jacket. You know this will not make you popular. Popularity is a product, Nia replied. Integrity is policy. He smiled, shaking his head. You always did talk like a preacher, only because people mistake justice for sermon, she said. When he left, the office fell silent again. Nia sat at her desk and opened a file labeled Protocol 6. Her eyes scanned the lines she had written months ago, long before any of this happened. It was a contingency plan designed not for profit protection, but for cultural reform. She had always known that one day she might need to activate it. She clicked the final authorization line. The system confirmed. Protocol 6 Phase 2 initiated. Equal treatment audit. All divisions. A slow breath escaped her lips. Her phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Dr. Lawson? A voice said, careful and small. Yes. This is Tracy Holtz. The air in the room seemed to still. Tracy's voice was softer than Nia remembered, stripped of the arrogance it once carried. I wanted to apologize, not for being caught, but for being blind. I have replayed that moment 1,000 times, trying to understand why I reacted the way I did, and the only answer I can find is fear. Nia said nothing for a moment. Fear of what? Fear of being less, Tracy said. Fear that someone like you could stand where I stood and do it better. Nia closed her eyes briefly. Acknowledgement is a start. I am not asking for my job back, Tracy said quickly. I just needed you to know I see it now. All of it. The tone, the assumption, the power I used without thinking. I saw myself in that mirror yesterday, and for the first time, I did not like who looked back. Nia's voice was gentle but unwavering. That is what mirrors are for. Not vanity, accountability. There was a pause. Then Tracy said quietly, Thank you for not yelling at me. I do not yell, Nia replied. The truth is loud enough. The line went quiet for several seconds before disconnecting. Nia leaned back in her chair, her heart heavy but calm. Outside, the clouds had thinned to a pale blue, sunlight glinting off the windows across the skyline. She could see her reflection in the glass, strong, steady, unyielding, but also human. She thought about every young woman watching that viral video, every person who had ever been told they did not belong in a place they helped build. For them, silence would never mean surrender again. Her computer chimed once more an incoming email. It was from Amira. Subject: First draft of the Equity and Service Training Module. Body: Dr. Lawson, this is the framework we discussed. It is built around empathy, not apology. Nia smiled, opening the file. As the document loaded, the city outside seemed to glow brighter, the way it does when the sun finally reaches the windows that had been in shadow all morning. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe deeply, knowing the storm had not ended, it had evolved. And sometimes, evolution was the only form of peace that mattered. Night descended gently over Atlanta, painting the city in silver and amber. From her office window, Nia Lawson could see the lights of Peachtree Street stretching into the distance like a trail of quiet resolve. The storm had passed, but its echoes still lingered in every headline, every conversation, every whispered acknowledgement that something irreversible had begun. The building was almost empty. Most of her staff had gone home hours ago, but Nia stayed, her mind restless, even as the city exhaled. Her office was dim except for the glow of her desk lamp, casting long shadows across the files and reports that marked the beginning of Protocol 6, Phase 2. On her screen, the dashboard of Serenité Group blinked with data employee testimonies, branch reports, audit updates from across the country. She read each one carefully, her face still but her eyes alive with thought. The numbers were staggering. 7 branches confirmed for bias-based complaints, 2 pending further review, 1 under internal legal supervision. It was worse than she expected, but not worse than she feared. The soft chime of her door interrupted her focus. Dana, her assistant, stepped in quietly holding 2 cups of coffee. "You have not eaten since noon," she said, setting one on the desk. "And you are still here after everyone else left." Nia smiled faintly. "That seems to be a pattern." Dana sat across from her, studying her face. "You know, when the board first hired me as your assistant, they told me you were impossible to read. I think I understand why now." Nia looked up, curious. "Why is that?" "Because you never let people see when something hurts," Dana said softly. "You turn pain into direction before it can touch you." Nia considered that, her expression unreadable. "If I let it touch me every time, I would have burned out before I began." Dana nodded slowly. "Still, even builders need rest." Nia took a sip of coffee and leaned back, eyes drifting toward the window. "Do you know what I keep thinking about?" "What?" "The look on Amira's face yesterday," she said quietly. "The mix of fear and courage. That was me once believing I had to be twice as calm, twice as careful, twice as perfect, just to survive a moment of injustice." Dana exhaled. "And now? Now I realize perfection was never the goal. Visibility is," Nia replied. "If they can see us, truly see us, then they have to face themselves." The intercom buzzed softly. Dana leaned forward and pressed the button. "Yes?" A voice from security came through. "Dr. Lawson, there is a woman downstairs asking to speak with you. She says it is urgent." "Who is it?" Dana asked. "She would not give her name, ma'am, but she said you would want to see her." Nia exchanged a glance with Dana. "Send her up." Minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Amira stepped out. She looked nervous but determined, holding a folder in both hands. "Dr. Lawson," she said, stopping just short of the desk. "I am sorry to come without notice." Nia stood and gestured toward the chair. "You are always welcome here. Sit down." Amira hesitated before sitting. "I finished the full draft of the Equity and Service Program, but that is not why I came. There is something you need to see." She opened the folder and slid a printed document across the desk. Nia scanned it quickly. It was a collection of anonymous messages from employees across multiple branches, testimonies that had come in after the viral video. Some were apologies, others were confessions. Many were painful truths written by people who had finally found the courage to speak. Dana read over Nia's shoulder, her eyes widening. "They are admitting everything. Racial profiling, selective membership, targeted dismissals." Amira nodded. "Some of them are begging for forgiveness. Some are terrified. But most of them say the same thing. They acted like the culture told them to." Nia's eyes lingered on one sentence near the bottom of the page. "We were trained to protect the image of serenity, not the people in it." She leaned back slowly, her breath steady but deep. "There it is," she murmured. "The truth in one line." Amira's voice trembled. "What do we do with it?" "We expose it," Nia said firmly. "All of it. Not as punishment, but as education." Dana looked uncertain. "You mean publish it?" "Yes," Nia said. "Anonymized but real. People think racism hides in insults. It hides in systems, in tone, in silence. Let them see the machinery." Amira's eyes widened slightly. "You want to show the world?" Nia nodded. "If peace is real, it can survive sunlight." Dana hesitated. "The board will panic." "Let them," Nia said quietly. "Crisis builds character, and character was what this company lost first." Amira closed the folder and looked at her mentor with awe. "You always sound so certain." Nia smiled faintly. "That is the secret, Amira. Certainty is not confidence. It is clarity. I do not need to know everything. I just need to know what is right." The room fell quiet again. Outside, the city pulsed with life, the hum of cars, the flicker of streetlights, the rhythm of a place still moving forward even after confrontation. After a long pause, Nia said softly, "Do you know what my father used to tell me?" Amira shook her head. "He said, 'Dignity does not shout, Nia. It stands.'" She looked toward the window, the glow of the skyline reflecting in her eyes. "That is what we are doing now. We are standing." Dana nodded slowly, emotion tightening her voice. "Then let them see what standing looks like." Nia smiled at both of them, then turned back to her computer. She opened a new document and began typing the headline herself. "Transparency Report, the Price of Peace." As her fingers moved across the keyboard, she spoke quietly, almost to herself. "They sold serenity. We will build it." Outside, the lights of Atlanta shimmered brighter, and in the reflection of the glass, 3 women stood framed against the night, each one carrying a different kind of strength, each one proof that change was already rewriting its own story. The storm was over, but the awakening had just begun. The next morning dawned in quiet gold. Atlanta's skyline glowed against a sky washed clean by rain. Down below, news vans lined the street outside Serenité Group headquarters. Microphones pointed at the glass doors. Cameras waited. The story had grown into something larger than a scandal. It had become a mirror the entire wellness industry could not look away from. In her office, Dr. Nia Lawson stood before a wall of screens showing live coverage. On one, a morning anchor spoke in practiced tones. The CEO who faced racism in her own spa has now launched what she calls a transparency report, an unprecedented move demanding all luxury wellness brands disclose their diversity and equity records. Another screen showed investors being interviewed. Some applauded her bravery, others whispered about financial risk. Yet even through the noise, Nia's expression stayed still, her posture calm, her mind precise. Dana entered with a tablet in hand. Dr. Lawson, the press conference is in 30 minutes. The live stream is ready. Every major outlet has confirmed attendance. Good, Nia said softly. Let them hear it from me, not from the echo. She turned from the screens and looked out the window. The reflection of the city shimmered in the glass, layered over her own face. It was symbolic, her reflection always living within a larger system, reshaping it from the inside out. Dana hesitated. Are you nervous? Nia smiled faintly. Truth does not need confidence. It just needs room. A soft knock came from the open door. Amira stepped inside, carrying a stack of printed notes. She looked both proud and nervous. Dr. Lawson, I finished compiling the internal submissions from employees who volunteered for the Reform Council. There are over 240 names. Nia's eyes softened. 240, she repeated. That means 240 people ready to do the work. Amira nodded. They said they were inspired by your speech yesterday. Some of them used to stay silent. Now they want to lead the new ethics committees. That, Nia said, is what change sounds like. Dana looked from one woman to the other, smiling slightly. You know, people used to say wellness was an illusion. Maybe you are proving it can be an awakening instead. Nia turned toward her assistant. Wellness is not the absence of pain, Dana. It is the courage to face it. She glanced at the clock. Let us begin. 30 minutes later, the conference room was filled to capacity. Reporters lined the back wall. Cameras hummed. Bright lights glared against the glass table where Nia sat, perfectly composed. A large backdrop behind her displayed the Serenité Group logo, accompanied by the new slogan, Peace with Purpose. The moment the red light on the main camera blinked, she began. Good morning, she said, her voice low but clear. Yesterday, our company faced itself. Today, we face you. Oh. The room went completely still. When I founded Serenité Group, my dream was simple: to build a place where wellness was not a privilege, but a right. Somewhere along the way, the brand forgot that promise. Luxury became more important than equality. Image replaced intention, and that failure is mine to fix. Her gaze swept across the crowd, direct, steady, unflinching. I was denied service at my own spa because of an assumption. It was not the first time I have been underestimated, and it will not be the last. But this time, I had the power to make sure it was the last time it happens to anyone here. Flashes from cameras filled the room, but she continued as though they did not exist. This is not about firing individuals. This is about dismantling the quiet, polished systems that protect bias under the name of policy. Serenité will now release an annual public record of every equity complaint, every resolution, and every measurable step toward inclusion. Transparency is not a threat, it is our contract with the public. A reporter raised his hand. Dr. Lawson, do you worry that this level of exposure could damage your brand's image? Nia smiled faintly. Our image was damaged the moment we let silence become decor. Integrity is better publicity than perfection. Another reporter called out. Do you think your story resonates because you are a black woman in a position of power? Her tone stayed calm, but her eyes sharpened. It resonates because it is human. But do not misunderstand, being a black woman in this position only makes it more necessary. For too long, professionalism has meant erasing the parts of us that make others uncomfortable. I am done erasing. A murmur rippled through the room. Nia leaned forward slightly, her voice deepening just enough to command absolute attention. I have learned something important this week. Peace is not quiet. peace is earned, and you cannot earn it until you confront what disturbs it. Amira stood near the back of the room, listening, her chest tight with pride. Dana watched too, her eyes glistening. Even the skeptical reporters had stopped typing. Nia continued, her cadence rhythmic, deliberate, each word landing like a gavel. From this day on, Serenité will partner with historically black colleges to provide scholarships in wellness leadership. We will create apprenticeship programs for underrepresented voices in health and hospitality. We will rebuild, not to recover our reputation, but to redefine it. Her voice softened. Because healing is not a marketing word, it is a moral one. Silence filled the space for a long moment. Then, slowly, applause began, hesitant at first, then building, until the room was filled with it. Some reporters even stood, their clapping echoing off the glass walls. Nia bowed her head slightly, accepting it not as triumph, but as acknowledgement. When the cameras shut off, Amira stepped forward, smiling. You did not just speak, Dr. Lawson. You rewrote the room. Nia looked at her, warmth flickering through her calm. Rooms only change when someone dares to stand differently inside them. Dana joined them, handing her a glass of water. You realize, she said softly, that this moment will be taught in business schools one day. Nia took a sip, then looked toward the wall of glass that faced the sunrise. If it is, she said, let them teach this, that the most radical thing a leader can do is refuse to let dignity be negotiable. Outside, the city glowed brighter. The reflection of Nia, Amira, and Dana shimmered across the glass wall, 3 silhouettes against the morning light. And in that reflection, the story of Serenité Lux had changed forever. It was no longer about luxury, it was about legacy. The applause from the press conference still echoed faintly in Nia's mind hours later as she stood alone in the quiet of her penthouse. The city stretched beneath her, an ocean of lights, pulsing softly under the evening sky. For the first time in many days, she was not surrounded by cameras, reporters, or board members. It was just her, the skyline, and the faint hum of Atlanta breathing through the glass walls. She set her phone on the counter and exhaled. The silence felt heavier than it should have. A victory this public always carried its private cost. The television in the corner flickered with a recap of the press conference. News anchors analyzed her words, splicing footage of her calm demeanor with headlines that read, "The New Standard of Accountability. From Scandal to Systemic Change." Nia muted the sound. She did not need commentary on her own truth. A soft knock came from the door. Dana stepped inside, her expression a blend of exhaustion and awe. She held 2 cups of chamomile tea. You were brilliant, she said, setting 1 cup on the table. Half the world just decided to believe in something again. Oh. Nia smiled faintly. And the other half decided to resist it. Dana sat across from her. Change always divides people before it unites them. But what you did today, that was historic. Nia looked out the window, her reflection merging with the city lights. History is not made by speeches, Dana. It is made by who keeps standing when the applause fades. She sipped her tea slowly. The warmth was grounding. Tell me, she said softly, how are the employees responding to the transparency report? Dana pulled out her tablet and scrolled through the latest updates. There are thousands of comments on the internal portal. Most are supportive, some are defensive, but the most powerful ones are confessions. People admitting they saw bias and stayed quiet. Some even said they were relieved that someone finally called it what it was. Nia nodded. Relief is the first step to responsibility. Dana hesitated. There is one more thing. The footage from the spa, the full unedited version, it is still circulating online. A few channels are twisting the narrative, saying you humiliated hard-working staff. Nia's eyes narrowed slightly. That was expected. They are calling you elitist, that you used power to shame. Let them, Nia said calmly. When truth confronts comfort, it always gets called arrogance first. The people who need to understand will. Dana studied her. You never get angry, do you? Nia turned her gaze toward her assistant. Anger is useful when it builds, not when it burns. I learned a long time ago that fury without direction becomes noise, and I refuse to make noise when I can make change. A soft chime interrupted them. Nia's smartwatch glowed with an incoming message. It was from Amira. Message. Dr. Lawson, the first Reform Council meeting is scheduled for tomorrow at 8 a.m. Would you like me to chair it or wait for your presence? Nia smiled. She is already leading, she murmured, typing her response. Reply, chair it. Speak from the heart. That is leadership. Dana grinned. She is going to be phenomenal. She already is, Nia said quietly. She just needed a mirror that reflected her potential instead of her position. The two women sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of everything settle. The city outside sparkled like constellations scattered across concrete. Dana leaned back. You know, I keep thinking about what you said in the conference. Peace is earned. I do not think anyone has ever said it that way before. Nia looked thoughtful. That is because most people mistake peace for quiet. But real peace is messy. It disrupts before it heals. It is like surgery. You have to open the wound before you can close it properly. Dana nodded slowly. You have a way of making truth sound beautiful. Truth is not beautiful, Nia said softly. It is necessary. The wind pressed against the glass, carrying faint echoes of the city below, traffic, music, life continuing, as if the world had not shifted just a little today. Dana stood, gathering her things. You should get some rest. Tomorrow will be heavier. Nia gave a faint, tired smile. Tomorrow always is. As Dana left, Nia walked toward the window again. The reflection staring back at her looked strong, but beneath the stillness was fatigue, a quiet ache that only leaders understand. The kind that comes from holding other people's hope without dropping your own. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a message from an unknown number. She hesitated before opening it. Message. Dr. Lawson, I saw your conference today. I used to work at your Chicago branch years ago. I left because of the bias I faced there. I never told anyone. Watching you speak made me cry. Thank you for fighting where I could not. Nia's hand hovered over the screen for a long moment. Then she typed slowly. Reply, you did fight. Silence in survival is still resistance. The world is just finally ready to hear it. She set the phone down, her eyes glistening. Outside, the night deepened, but the city lights refused to dim. In that glow, she thought of every young woman watching her story unfold. Every man who doubted her authority until she stood calmly in the truth. Every employee learning that empathy was not weakness, it was the foundation of power. Her reflection stared back at her through the glass, framed by the lights of Atlanta. You did not shout, she whispered to herself. You stood. The hum of the city answered like applause from a distance, steady, rhythmic, alive. Nia turned off the lights, leaving the room in twilight. The skyline shimmered around her as if bowing in quiet respect. And as she walked away from the window, her steps were slow but certain, the echo of a woman who had already changed what power sounded like. That night, Atlanta slept beneath her feet, unaware that within one calm heartbeat at a time, justice was rewriting its rhythm. The next morning broke in silver light. The city was still waking when Nia arrived at headquarters just after 7:30. The building's glass facade caught the sunrise, reflecting gold across the pavement, a symbol of new beginnings, or perhaps accountability in daylight. She stepped inside quietly. The lobby was calm but alive with quiet energy. Employees she passed in the hallway greeted her with a mix of respect and awe. For the first time, their eyes did not hold fear or distance, only awareness. On the top floor, the Reform Council meeting was already in motion. Through the glass doors, she saw Amira standing at the head of the table, her shoulders square, her voice steady. The room was filled with managers, directors, and staff from across departments, a collection of people who once operated in silence, now gathered in conversation. Nia paused before entering, wanting to witness the moment as an observer rather than a symbol. And moving forward, Amira was saying, we will implement a new client intake policy. No assumptions based on appearance, speech, or background. Every guest will be treated with equal courtesy, not because they might be important, but because they are. A murmur of agreement passed around the table. One manager raised her hand. What about the training module timeline? 3 weeks, Amira answered. Dr. Lawson approved the framework. It will cover empathy-based leadership, micro-behavior analysis, and ethical communication. Another voice chimed in. And what about Miss Holtz and Mr. Voss? Have their replacements been confirmed? Amira's tone remained professional. They are still under review. But this is not about replacing names. It is about replacing mindsets. Nia smiled quietly to herself. The phrasing, the composure, the balance between firmness and grace Amira was learning fast. Dana noticed her at the doorway and gestured gently. Dr. Lawson? She whispered. They have been waiting for you. Oh? Nia stepped in, her presence shifting the air in the room instantly. Conversations hushed, chairs straightened, and eyes turned toward her, not out of fear, but respect. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm and grounded. "Please, continue." Amira smiled, slightly nervous but composed. "We were just reviewing the new empathy protocols." Nia nodded. "I heard. You are leading well." Amira exhaled, relief flickering across her face. "Thank you, Dr. Lawson." "Oh." Nia moved to the table, placing her hands lightly on the surface. "What we are building here is not a response to scandal. It is a return to purpose. The spa was only the mirror. The reflection is what matters." She looked around the table. "Each of you has a choice to defend what was, or to define what will be. Choose wisely, because culture does not change by decree. It changes by daily decision." Silence filled the room, not out of tension but thought, the kind of silence that precedes real understanding. A younger staff member spoke up from the corner. "Dr. Lawson, may I ask something?" "Of course." The woman hesitated. "What do we say to clients who bring up what happened? Some people online are saying this company has lost its luxury." Nia's expression softened. "Luxury," she said, "was never marble floors or silk robes. It was the comfort of being treated with humanity. If people call that loss, let them. We are not losing luxury, we are redefining it." The woman nodded slowly, visibly moved. Nia continued, "Every brand has a story. Ours has just become honest. That honesty is not our shame, it is our strength." Across the room, Dana scribbled notes, capturing every phrase. After an hour, the meeting transitioned into planning. Teams discussed timelines, resource allocation, and communication strategies. Nia listened more than she spoke. Watching her team work, she felt something she had not felt in months, not pride, but restoration. At the end of the session, as the room began to clear, Amira approached her. "Dr. Lawson," she said softly, "I wanted to thank you for trusting me." Nia turned to her, her expression warm but firm. "Do not thank me. You earned that trust the moment you stood up when others stayed seated." Amira's eyes glistened. "I will not waste the chance." "I know," Nia said. "Just remember, leadership is not about being loud, it is about being consistent." They shared a quiet smile. As Nia stepped out into the hallway, the sound of voices from the meeting followed her, energetic, collaborative, alive. It was no longer the silence of avoidance. It was the noise of rebuilding. She walked toward the window, overlooking the city. The light had risen fully now, flooding the glass with gold. For the first time, she allowed herself a small breath of peace, not the fragile kind that breaks under scrutiny, but the earned kind, born from truth. Behind her, the future of Serenité was already in motion. Ahead of her, the city glowed like a promise. And in that still, golden morning, Dr. Nia Lawson finally understood the world had not just watched her reclaim dignity, it was learning how to reclaim its own. The following week moved like a tide, steady, deliberate, unstoppable. By Monday morning, Serenité Group had transformed from a company under scrutiny to a movement under reconstruction. Every department, from finance to facilities, was now engaged in rebuilding not the brand's image, but its integrity. Dr. Nia Lawson watched the transformation unfold with quiet satisfaction. The chaos of exposure had given way to purpose. The walls of her office, once lined with awards and framed magazine covers, were now covered with handwritten notes, employee pledges, policy drafts, and sketches of the new Equity and Service program. It was messy, alive, and real. Dana entered holding a new report. "Dr. Lawson," she said, her tone a mix of disbelief and pride, "our client retention numbers have gone up 12% since the incident." Nia looked up from her desk. 12? "Yes," Dana said. "Apparently people trust us more now that we stopped pretending to be perfect." Nia smiled softly. "Authenticity sells better than illusion. It always has, it just takes courage to admit it." Amira appeared at the door, her arms full of training binders. "The new empathy sessions are fully booked," she said. "Even staff from other branches are asking to join virtually. Some are calling it the Lawson model." Nia laughed gently. "That sounds far too grand. Let us just call it what it is, learning to treat people as people." Amira grinned. "Yes, ma'am." Dana glanced toward Amira's stack of papers. "You are carrying more work than the training department." "I like it," Amira replied. "Feels like rebuilding a soul." Nia looked at her approvingly. That is exactly what we are doing. Later that afternoon, Nia visited the newly reopened Serenité Luxe Spa, the same place where everything had begun. The air inside felt different now. The scent of lavender still lingered, but it carried no arrogance. The soft piano music returned, not as performance, but as comfort. Guests moved through the lobby calmly, greeted by attendants who smiled genuinely, not mechanically. The walls had been repainted in warmer tones, and behind the reception counter hung a new sign carved in elegant bronze: "Luxury begins with respect." Amira met her in the lobby, clipboard in hand. "We reopened this morning," she said. "Full bookings already. People wanted to see what change looks like." Nia's eyes roamed the space, every corner carrying a memory of confrontation and now redemption. "It looks like peace," she said softly. Tracy Holtz's absence was palpable. Her nameplate had been removed from the staff board, replaced with vacant under consideration. Yet her shadow lingered in the story, a reminder that reform was born from imperfection. A guest, an older woman in a navy robe, approached them. "Excuse me," she said politely. "Are you the owner?" Nia nodded. The woman smiled warmly. "I saw what happened on the news. My daughter works in a company that used your model this week for their own diversity audit. I wanted to come here just to say thank you." Nia was momentarily taken aback. "You do not need to thank me," she said. "Oh, I do," the woman replied. "You reminded people that respect is not a service. It is a standard." Her words lingered long after she walked away. By evening, Nia and Amira sat in the spa cafe, reviewing notes over herbal tea. The windows overlooked the city, where twilight stretched its first colors across the skyline. Amira looked up from her pages. "You know what I realized?" "What?" Nia asked. "Before all this, I used to think change came from protests or anger. But now I see it comes from something quieter: consistency. The way you never raise your voice but somehow still make people listen." Nia smiled, her gaze distant. "Consistency is how justice grows roots. Rage may start the fire, but discipline keeps it burning." Amira nodded. "I hope one day I can lead like that." "You already do," Nia said. "Leadership is not about position, Amira. It is about how you use your calm." They sat in silence for a moment, the soft hum of the city below blending with the low music in the background. Amira finally asked, "Do you ever regret what happened that day?" Nia thought for a long moment before answering. "No, that day was the truth knocking on my door and I decided to open it." A faint smile touched Amira's lips. "You make everything sound poetic." Nia chuckled. "That is because truth always has rhythm. You just have to listen closely enough." Outside, the last light faded, replaced by the city's golden glow. The spa's sign shimmered against the glass, reflecting across the floor, "Luxury begins with respect." Nia looked at it one last time before standing. "Let us go, Amira. We have work to do tomorrow." As they walked toward the exit, the reflection of their figures moved across the marble, two silhouettes side by side. One carried experience, the other carried hope. And together, they were building something stronger than success. They were building permanence. For the first time since the scandal began, Serenité Luxe felt truly alive, not because of wealth or fame, but because peace had finally learned to stand. The following morning arrived gentle and bright, the kind of morning that felt like a quiet reward. The air over Atlanta shimmered with light rain, catching the sun in soft streaks of silver. Inside Serenité Group headquarters, the atmosphere was calm but charged with a new kind of energy, not the tense urgency of crisis, but the rhythm of renewal. Dr. Nia Lawson walked through the halls, her heels tapping a measured cadence against the polished floor. Every head she passed turned toward her with nods of respect, not obligation. Conversations paused, then resumed with purpose. The energy was different now, grounded, aware, alive. In the boardroom, the Leadership Council had already gathered. The long mahogany table gleamed beneath the ceiling lights, and at the center, a new statement had been etched in gold lettering across the glass wall. "Integrity before image." Nia stood at the head of the table. "Good morning," she began. Her tone was calm, but unwavering. "Today marks 30 days since the incident at Serenité Luxe Spa. 30 days since we stopped performing Serenity and started living it." A quiet murmur of agreement rippled through the room. She continued, "I asked you here to discuss not just progress, but permanence. Reform means nothing if it does not survive convenience." Her words hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. Kenneth Bell, the chairman, leaned forward. Dr. Lawson, I believe permanence is exactly what we are seeing. Public approval is climbing, and internal surveys show employees feel more valued. You have done something remarkable. Nia shook her head slightly. We have done something necessary. Remarkable will be when this becomes normal. She turned to Amira, who sat 2 seats down, taking notes. Miss Daniels, how are the empathy training programs progressing? Amira smiled, her confidence unmistakable now. All branches have completed Phase 1. Phase 2 begins next week, focusing on ethical decision-making and communication. Staff are responding better than expected. Some even say it feels more like therapy than training. Good, Nia said. Healing disguised as learning. That is exactly what it should feel like. Kenneth interjected. Dr. Lawson, the board also approved your proposal for the Equity Fellowship program. We will officially launch it this fall. Applause filled the room. For a moment, even Nia allowed herself to smile. Then let it begin here, she said softly. Atlanta will be our foundation. As the meeting continued, reports and updates flowed easily. The fear that once defined boardroom discussions had been replaced by honesty and the kind of trust that can only grow in the aftermath of confrontation. When the meeting concluded, the council members filed out, leaving Nia alone by the window. The skyline stretched before her glass towers, sunlit streets, a city she loved for its rhythm, resilience, and refusal to stay silent. Amira lingered by the doorway. Dr. Lawson? Yes? I just wanted to say thank you again. For everything. Nia turned toward her, smiling. You already thanked me, Amira. Now promise me something instead. Amira nodded. Anything. When people doubt you, Nia said softly, do not fight to prove them wrong. Just keep doing the work. Truth makes the loudest noise in silence. Amira's eyes glistened. I will remember that. Good, Nia replied, because the world will always test your calm. Amira smiled, then left the room. Nia stayed by the window a moment longer. The rain outside had slowed, leaving streaks across the glass that caught the light like fine silver threads. The reflection staring back at her no longer looked like a woman fighting for recognition. It looked like a leader who had already earned it. And somewhere deep inside, Nia knew this was no longer just her victory, it was a new standard. She whispered to the city below, almost like a vow. Let them remember dignity is not a demand, it is a decision. Outside, Atlanta gleamed in the morning sun, and for the first time, Serenite Group felt unshakable. The storm had passed. The foundation remained. And in that golden stillness, peace no longer needed to be sold. It had finally been built. By the end of that week, the transformation of Serenite Group had rippled far beyond Atlanta. News outlets across the country were calling it the Lawson effect. Editorials praised the company for proving that accountability could be an asset, not a liability. Business schools were already referencing her press conference as a case study in ethical leadership. Yet for Dr. Nia Lawson, the noise outside mattered less than the quiet change happening within. She arrived early at the Serenite Luxe Spa that Friday morning, the place where everything had begun. The building stood gleaming under soft sunlight, but the energy within was different, lighter, more grounded. Inside, the lobby buzzed with a calm professionalism that felt earned. Every smile carried intention, not obligation. Amira was already there, overseeing a small orientation session for new hires. The group was diverse men and women of different backgrounds, ages, and stories. On the wall behind them hung a new framed quote in bronze. Respect is not training, it is practice. When Amira noticed Nia entering, she smiled and gestured toward her. Everyone, this is Dr. Lawson, our founder, our mirror, and the reason you are part of something that stands for more than luxury. Nia chuckled softly, raising a hand. Let us skip the titles. I am Nia. Welcome to Serenite. She walked closer, her voice low but commanding. I want to tell you something before you begin your journey here. This company was not rebuilt because of money, or reputation, or even innovation. It was rebuilt because of failure. A failure to see, to listen, to respect. But failure is only fatal when you stop learning. Here, we do not hide from it. We use it. The room was silent, every face focused on her. Nia continued. You are not here to perform politeness. You are here to protect dignity, yours and everyone else's. If you do that, then no matter what happens, this place will always stand for something real. Applause filled the room, soft but heartfelt. Amira's eyes glistened as she clapped along, her pride unmistakable. After the session ended, Nia and Amira stepped aside near the fountain. The water shimmered under the lobby lights, its sound steady and soothing, no longer the background noise of pretension, but the heartbeat of renewal. "You handled that beautifully," Nia said. Amira smiled. "I just tried to follow your lead." "You did not follow," Nia said gently. "You grew. And that is what leadership is supposed to do, multiply itself." They stood in silence for a moment, listening to the rhythm of the fountain. Amira finally asked, "Do you ever think about her? About Miss Holtz?" Nia nodded slowly. "Sometimes. Not with anger, but with understanding. She became the mirror we all needed to face. Without her, this would still be illusion instead of change." Amira exhaled. "Do you think she regrets it?" "I think she has learned," Nia said simply, "and that is enough." The doors of the spa opened, letting in the gentle hum of morning traffic. Guests began arriving, smiling, relaxed, greeted with genuine warmth by the staff. The spa had found its rhythm again, but now it was real. Nia looked around, her gaze lingering on every detail, the art on the walls, the calm in the air, the quiet dignity that replaced fear. "This," she said softly, "is what rebuilding looks like. Not louder, not shinier, just truer." Amira followed her gaze. "You changed the company, Dr. Lawson, but I think you changed the industry too." Nia smiled faintly. "Then let us hope the world keeps listening." She turned toward the glass doors, the light spilling across her face like quiet applause. "And if they do not, we will remind them calmly, firmly, and without asking permission." Amira nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "That sounds like peace." "No," Nia said, her eyes steady on the horizon. "That sounds like justice finding its balance." Outside, the city moved steadily, unaware that within those glass walls, dignity had found its permanent home. And for the first time since the humiliation that started it all, Serenité Lux no longer needed to defend its name. It had become its meaning. The sun was beginning to set over Atlanta, painting the skyline in strokes of copper and rose. From the large windows of her office, Dr. Nia Lawson watched the light stretch across the city, touching every glass tower like a quiet benediction. The day was ending, but something far greater was settling into permanence peace that had finally learned to stand on its own. Her desk was cleared for the first time in weeks. The last reports were signed, the last approvals granted. Across from her sat Dana and Amira, both smiling, both carrying the same glow of purpose that had carried the company through its transformation. "We did it," Dana said softly. Nia looked up, her voice calm. "No, we started it. Change is never done. It just keeps passing hands." Amira smiled. "Still, it feels different now. The staff are lighter, the guests are happier. Even the investors sound human." Nia chuckled quietly. "That might be the biggest miracle of all." Ugh. They laughed together, the sound soft and real, filling the space that had once carried only tension. Amira set a small folder on the desk. "Before I forget," she said, "I brought something for you. The final draft of the Equity and Service Manual, the one we built from all the new training materials." Nia opened it, her fingers brushing the title page. In elegant font, it read, "The Lawson Framework Wellness with Integrity." Her smile deepened. "You named it after me?" Amira nodded. "We all did. You taught us that peace is not quiet. It is accountability that breathes." For a long moment, Nia said nothing. Her eyes traced the title, then lifted to meet Amira's. "Then promise me this one day. Take my name off it. Make it belong to everyone who believes in it." Amira's eyes softened. "I promise." Dana leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. "Dr. Lawson, there is a quote going viral online. Something you said during the press conference. Integrity is better publicity than perfection. It is everywhere. People are turning it into art, posters, even business mottos." Nia raised an eyebrow. "If that line helps them listen, let them have it." "But do you realize what you have become?" Dana asked, half in awe. "A symbol." Nia smiled faintly. "Symbols are just mirrors, Dana. They show people what they already needed to see." Ugh. The room grew quiet again, but it was a peaceful quiet, the kind that hums beneath accomplishment, not exhaustion. Outside, the first streetlights began to flicker on. The city's reflection shimmered across the glass, blending with their silhouettes, three women who had faced a storm and turned it into light. Amira stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the city below. "It is beautiful from up here," she said softly. "Everything looks calmer." Nia joined her. "That is because you are seeing it clearly now. The city did not change, we did." They stood side by side, watching as the sun dipped below the skyline. For a long moment, there were no words, only the slow rhythm of the world exhaling. Finally, Nia spoke, her tone gentle but resolute. "When people ask what happened here, I want them to understand something. This was never a story about a spa or a scandal or a single moment of prejudice. This was a story about recognition the moment dignity looked injustice in the eye and refused to lower its gaze." Amira turned to her, eyes glistening. "Do you think people will remember that?" Nia smiled. "If they do not, we will remind them, calmly, always." Dana's voice was soft behind them. "You know, this could be the ending to your memoir one day." Nia looked back with a quiet grin. "It is not the end, Dana. It is just the echo." The three women stood together as the last rays of sun disappeared, leaving the sky brushed in violet and gold. Below them, Atlanta glowed alive, a city that had watched, judged, learned, and changed. And somewhere between that light and silence, Serenité Lux stood not as a symbol of wealth, but as proof that peace, when built on truth, could outshine luxury itself. As the office lights dimmed automatically, Nia whispered the words that had carried her through every battle. "Power does not shout, it stands." And when the night fully claimed the skyline, her reflection in the glass was not alone, it carried every voice that had once been silenced, now steady, now seen, now free. The story had begun with humiliation. It ended with dignity that could not be moved.